so much for being here. It's a chilly day outside. You could have had 101 reasons for not coming. But I just like to say thank you so much for being here and being willing to celebrate with us the legacy of Dr. King. It seems to me that many African Americans have forgotten about the struggle. The struggle exists today. You know, sometimes people think that it's over. It's not over. It's not over till Christ comes back. Okay, I'm going to open in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Lord, we thank you that you are our God, the Most High God. Lord, we count it a privilege to serve you. I pray a blessing upon each household that is here today, O Lord, and I pray that we will follow in your example first, Dr. King second. He followed your way to walk in love and to walk as a servant. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I am going to introduce to you our returning MC from last year, MC DeAndre. He is a student at an Achievable Dream. He's a sophomore. He's a fine young man. So I keep the program in your hands.
How you doing? I'm doing good. An interview with Bernice. Bernice was a young child of civil rights. Leader Martin Luther King Jr. and Scott King. She was 5 years old when the father was arrested.
I'm your host, Cassandra Hargrave. Today on Interviews with Famous, we are going to be interviewing the Dr. Bernice King, who was the youngest child of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Hi, Dr. King. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Ms. Hargrave. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Let's get right into the questions. I know that you are, and I just said you are the youngest child of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And, you know, all of this time period with your father and things that were going on in your life must have been so shocking to you as a child, especially to watch it through the eyes of a child. Do you remember that day on April 4th, 1968?
On April 4th, 1968, I was only 5 years old at that time, so there are very few pieces that I do recall. But since I've grown up, I've been exposed to the recordings and the writings and literature that my father created, and it helped to build a memory for me. But I basically had just turned 5 years old 7 days before the assassination.
Okay, so you don't remember too much of that. Well, with all that happened to your family and your father, most would probably think that you had a right to be a little angry, maybe closed off, a little hostile because of how your family was treated and how your father was taken from you. And yet, you seem to be none of those things. Why is that?
Well, I may seem to be none of those things at this time, but there was a period in my life that I had to go through in order to get to the place where I am now. During my teenage years, I became very angry at the world, especially white people, white men. And it was not until I appeared in an interview with the evangelical James Robinson, who asked to interview me about growing up without a father. It was during that interview, in the midst of it, that he asked me if he could give me a hug. And I just said, oh, yes, that's fine, it'll be okay. But I want you to know that that was the most genuine hug. It was a most genuine hug, and something began to happen in me that day. I felt a transformation. I began to experience a love, and my hatred for white men seemed to begin to melt. I had more experiences, even though on an airplane when a white gentleman would try and put my coat on, and I could see and begin to understand that God himself was doing a work inside of me. So I have not always been at the point that I am now, but I did experience much anger and much frustration. But I thank God that I have gotten to the point that I am at now with his help.
And speaking of where you are now, you do a lot of work at the King Center in Atlanta, where you're currently the CEO. What do you hope your legacy to be there at the King Center?
At the King Center, I am hoping that my legacy will be one of recruiting a cadre of nonviolent workers, maybe soliciting from this new generation a group of people who will be warriors, love warriors, people who will go out and do what my father called creating a beloved community, people who will be able to show love in the midst of hatred. And I believe that the only way that we're going to get to that point is that we continue to recruit and continue to have warriors on the battlefield showing the kind of love that my father talked about.
That's nice, the kind of love that your father talked about. Now, in your work and in your life, you seem to embrace the fact that you are the daughter of Coretta Scott King and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Some people with iconic parents would tend to shy away from that. Why don't you?
Now, there was a time in my life when I did shy away from it. As a matter of fact, it took me 8 years to respond to the call for ministry because of that. I was first called into the ministry at the age of 17, but because I was dealing with the fact that my parents were Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King, it created sort of an identity problem for me because I didn't want to be known as Dr. King's daughter or Cora Scott's daughter. So that is the very reason why I decided to go to law school, because I wanted to embrace a schedule or an activity that was totally different, something that would give me my own identity. But what I have discovered in maturing is that it's important to know who your parents are, because if it wasn't for my parents, I wouldn't be here. So my parents have paved the road, and I want to pass that on to the new generation to help them understand no matter what intellectual skills you may have, what talents you may have, somebody paved the road for you. And many times, it is the parent who has done the work. So now I'm okay with the idea that I'm Dr. King's daughter and Coretta Scott King's daughter, because they are my parents. Oh, and a funny thing, my mother arranged a meeting for me that was very important. And when I came out of that meeting, I called my mother and I said, Mother, I just want to thank you for the honor of letting me be your daughter, because it was important to me what my mother did for me. So now I know that they're my parents and I'm their daughter.
Well, what your parents have done for all of us is quite important, and as we celebrate what your parents, specifically your father, but also your mother, have done for us tomorrow on Martin Luther King Day, how do you think your father would want this day to be remembered?
I believe that my father would ask that everyone sit down and think about their role in the world. What can they do to demonstrate love? What can they do despite violence that is in the world? How can they show nonviolence? How can they demonstrate nonviolence responses to the violence that is occurring? My father would want people to move, to do something. He once said, if you cannot fly, then run. If you cannot run, then walk. If you cannot walk, then crawl. And if you cannot crawl, do something. just keep moving. And that is what my heart is.
Just keep moving. And with that, Dr. King, our time is up. Thank you for spending the afternoon with us. We greatly appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next go-around.
What an honor. Thank you, Ms. Humphrey.
It's called Martin. Martin. Said the potter to the clay, I could have made you gold. Since it was my choice to make, I've decided you would be cold. I must protest, said the clay. I want to decide my fate. Just what type of thing I'll be, big or tall, small or great. Raised in the South as a Negro boy, I listened to Grandpa preach. His message brought my daddy joy, and he began to seek. He soon became a pastor too, and I knew that I had to follow, for my dad was my hero, and I loved to hear him holler. I am the diamond that sparkles so bright, oh, the pressure I had to bear, to be so perfectly formed, and to fetch such a fare. More precious than gold that shines, for such a great price I'm sold. I wonder how I could have been just a lump of coal. From Montgomery to Birmingham, I led the valiant fight. The dogs were mean, the people meaner, but nonviolence was my plight. With Nobel Prizes and freedom medals, some thought that it was fun, but I said, how could it? And at the assassin's hand, my life ended with a bullet. I'm free now, free at last to sing, and so they won't forget me. My name is Martin Luther King.
In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Wait a minute, that's not right. I have a baby, I was up all night.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
Let me get back to the right thing and talk to you about Dr. Martin Luther King. Being a new mom, I think about his wife, how what he stood for affected her life. 51 years later, if he knew we'd forget the sacrifices he made and the nights his wife led. All the times for his family, he wouldn't be there. Would he be okay with it all if he knew 51 years later we'd no longer care?
Mr. Martin Luther King, the man who had a dream. He dreamt that all people would be equal and free, so he took upon that dream and he gathered up a team to make a stand and fight against the man. Made a march to Selma, Montgomery, Alabama, to register to vote, but the people weren't happy. Talking about the whites, abusing everyone they saw in sight, using pickaxe and sticks to cause fights. Then the word got around. They said, this kid is insane, man. Using all their power just to send him to burn, using files, evidence, and pearly protests. But the world's gonna know his name. What's his name, y'all? Martin Luther King Jr. His name is Martin Luther King Jr. And he will come out winning this fight. Just you wait, just you wait. Then he got in jail after a week and they took a seat. He took a seat too. Listen to his man's famous speech. I have a dream. He has a dream that everyone is equal. There is peace and well-being. No more violence, no more safety. There are no segregation. Martin Luther King Jr. His name is Martin Luther King Jr. And he will come out winning this fight. Just you wait, just you wait. That's it.
Clergyman. While confined here in the Birmingham City Jail, I came across your recent statement calling my present activities unwise and untimely. Seldom do I pause to answer criticism of my work and ideas. If I sought to answer all the criticisms that crossed my desk, my secretaries would have little time for anything other than such correspondence in the course of the day, and I would have no time for constructive work. But since I feel that you are men of genuine goodwill and that your criticisms are sincerely set forth, I want to try to answer your statement in what I hope will be patient and reasonable terms. I think I should indicate why I am here in Birmingham, since you have been influenced by the view which argues against outsiders coming in. I have the honor of serving as president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization operating in every southern state with headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. We have some 85 affiliated organizations across the South, and one of them is the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights. Frequently, we share staff, educational, and financial resources with our affiliates. Several months ago, the affiliate here in Birmingham asked us to be on call to engage in a nonviolent direct action program if such were deemed necessary. We readily consented, and when the hour came, we lived up to our promise. So I, along with several members of my staff, am here because I was invited here. I am here because I have organizational ties here. But more basically, I'm in Birmingham because injustice is here. Just as the prophets of the 8th century B.C. left their villages and carried their "Thus saith the Lord" far beyond the boundaries of their hometowns, and just as the Apostle Paul left his village of Tarsus and carried the gospel of Jesus Christ to the far corners of the Greco-Roman world, so am I compelled to carry the gospel of freedom beyond my own hometown. Like Paul, I must constantly respond to the Macedonian call for aid. Moreover, I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. You deplore the demonstrations taking place in Birmingham, but your statement, I'm sorry to say, fails to express a similar concern for the conditions that brought about the demonstrations. I am sure that none of you would want to rest content with a superficial kind of social analysis that deals merely with effects and does not grapple with underlying causes. It is unfortunate that demonstrations are taking place in Birmingham, but it is even more unfortunate that the city's white power structure left the Negro community with no alternative. In any nonviolent campaign, there are 4 basic steps: collection of the facts to determine whether injustices exist, negotiation, self-purification, and direct action. We have gone through all these steps in Birmingham. There can be no gainsaying the fact that racial injustice engulfs this community. Birmingham is probably the most thoroughly segregated city in the United States. Its ugly record of brutality is widely known. Negroes have experienced grossly unjust treatment in the court. There have been more unsolved bombings of Negro homes and churches in Birmingham than in any other city in the nation. These are the hard, brutal facts of the case. On the basis of these conditions, Negro leaders sought to negotiate with the city fathers, but the latter consistently refused to engage in good faith negotiation. Then last September came the opportunity to talk with leaders of Birmingham's economic community. In the course of the negotiations, certain promises were made by the merchants, for example, to remove the store's humiliating racial signs. On the basis of these promises, the Reverend Fred Shuttleworth and the leaders of the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights agreed to a moratorium on all demonstrations.
It's winter. Dropping temperatures, bare trees, gray skies. January 1929, God sent a prophet, Martin Luther King Jr. Born in Atlanta, he was a moral voice, crying, "Love your enemies is the only choice." Dark, unjust laws of the land, hate and Jim Crow spewed from many a man. Nonviolent responses, Martin led boycotts and sit-ins. Light dispels darkness. Out of it came the Civil Rights Act of '64 and Voting Rights Act of '65. For excellence, Martin Luther King did strive. A drum major for righteousness, peace, and love, his great power came from above. It's wintertime. The work is not through. God is looking for a warrior. MLK did it. Is the next warrior you?
All right.
That's it. Our poem is called Black History Woman. It's not really about Martin Luther King. I didn't write any poetry poem about Martin Luther King, but here goes. Let me tell you of two outstanding females that led the way, in a way, so we could have what we have today. One is Maya Angelou. She did a great deed. She helped people overcome their fears through poetry. She taught people how not to shout or pout when bad days come. We strive until we know we won. She helped prove that women are no different than men, no different than the hatching of an egg under a mother hen. The other leader, singer Mahalia Jackson. She taught many not to fear showing God. She led many souls. It's not wondrous or odd. Sad to say, of course she died, and many, many people cried. She was a gospel queen and had a beautiful voice. Voice was the kind that seems you'll never get annoyed. Yes, proud is what I am, with my head held high. Not too proud though, and not too high. We're strong women, not too soft, not too hard. Though I will admit the road gets very, very, very dark. So let's be like Maya and Mahalia and help lead the way for those children who need a leader today.
Let me say that although I may look like a white man, my heart is just as black as any man here. Now we must not be misled by left-wing incompetent news media that day after day they feed us a diet of fantasy, calling us bigots and racists and hate mongers because we try to take care of our neighbors. It's a sad day in this country when you can't talk about the law and order unless they call you racist. It seems that other parts of the world ought not to be concerned with how we treat our Negroes, but they ought to be concerned about what we think of them instead of what they think of us. After all, we are feeding most of them, and whenever they start rejecting 25 cents of each foreign dollar aid that we give them, then I'll be concerned about their attitude toward us. And about the demonstrators that come down from the north, those agitators. If any demonstrator ever lays down in front of my car, it'll be the last car he ever lay down in front of. And on the subject of segregation in the South, we have never had a problem here in the South, except in a very few isolated instances, and these have been the result of those outside agitators. And contrary to reports of many of the national news media and the propaganda distributed by various organizations, our efforts here in the South are not against our Negro citizens. We fight for the betterment of all people in our state. I personally have done more for the Negro of the state of Alabama than any other individual. Our efforts are key to fight to preserve a constitutional government of state sovereignty, not to hurt our Negroes, and we never have. White and colored have lived together in the South for generations in peace and equanimity. They prefer their own pattern in society. Whites live with whites and blacks live with blacks. They prefer their own churches and their own schools, which history and experience has proven the best for both races. Whites and Negroes are not supposed to be that close together. And as stated before, them outside agitators from the North have created any friction occurring between the races. This is true and applies to other areas as well. People who move to the South from sections where they don't have a lot of Negroes, they soon come here and they realize that we have a good way of life and the way it's supposed to be. But when it comes to segregation, I draw the line in the dust and toss the gauntlet before the feet of tyranny. And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American, in whose symbolic shadow we stand today, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon, light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land.
That's right.
So we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was the promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note. And so far as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt.
That's right.
We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation.
That's right.
And so we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us, upon demand, the riches of freedom and the security of justice. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh out narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storm of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality.
That's right.
You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi.
That's right.
Go back to Alabama.
Yes.
Go back to South Carolina.
Yes.
Go back to Georgia.
Yes.
Go back to Louisiana.
Yes.
Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed.
Yes.
Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
Have a dream.
Right.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed.
Yes.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood.
Yes.
I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of the skin, but the content of their character.
Yes.
I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day, right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and every mountain shall be made low.
Yes.
The rough places will be plain, and the crooked places will be set straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together,
Yes.
to go to jail together,
Yes.
and stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day.
That's right.
And this will be the day, this will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. my country, 'tis of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing.
Yes.
Land where my father died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to become a great nation, this must be true. So let freedom ring from the prosperous hilltops of New Hampshire.
That's right.
Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York.
Yes.
Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring
Yes.
from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And when this happens,
Yes.
and when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children,
Yes.
black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last.
Yeah.
Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Martin Luther King was a man sent from God. He was placed on this earth so that our life won't be so hard. We can walk in any restaurant and choose whatever we want to eat, but most importantly, we don't have to stand. We can always take a seat. We can walk inside of any department store and try on anything that we choose, and guess what? The clothes, they don't have to be used. If you're outside jogging and you have to take a drink, choose the water fountain that you want to use. No one will even wink. Thanks to Martin Luther King, his dream made all of this possible. Now it's all up to us to keep his dream alive.
Alright, my poem's name is Blood Must Not Have Blood. Dreams last for around 30 minutes. God made Martin's dream last for 39 years. 39 years. 1,230,721,128 seconds. 20,512,018.8 minutes. 341,866.98 hours. And 14,244.46 days. 39 years. Dreaming for a better life, a better world, a better country, a better future. A man said, there is no light at the end of the tunnel, just a tunnel. Another enemy to fight, another war. He's right. There will always be another enemy, another war. But the mighty Lord says, halt, lay down your weapons, for your fight is no more. Blood must not have blood. How y'all doing again? This poem is named Death of a Black Man. I wrote it because I was feeling some type of way on my birthday, and I just thought it hit to what I was thinking about. The death of a black man. Because I'm a young black man, I fall under a stereotype. The stereotype while I fail, I don't fail, I excel. I'm like a bumper sticker, don't tread on me. I can't have hobbies, I can't go outside because I look like Tyrone from down the street who just robbed the corner store. The death of a black man. I'm just supposed to die or be in jail by the time I'm 21. That is barely the time I could be in college and doing things with my life, but I fall on the stereotype based on a skin color. The death of a black man. I can't play paintball. I can't play airsoft because the cop think it's real and start letting off shots, calling for backup. Once he get that 10-4, I better be out the door because if I get shot, my body be on the floor. Then he turn the cams off and see I came at him with a gun. See, I can't have no fun. The death of a black man. I get blamed for everything. Rape, murder, drugs, guns. If I have a white judge, my life is done. He not gonna shake it off like a pet and roll over. I'm not getting no bail. I'm not getting no bond. But I'll be in bondage for the longest. The judge gave me 20 years for a crime I didn't commit. Death of a black man. Now that I'm in prison with this bad life that I'm living, things I had to do, things that had to be done, it ain't no fun. But luck runs out. Now I'm getting jumped by 10, I ain't got no friends. The one that said he was my friend, he ain't my friend. He was one of the ones that jumped in, he was kicking, hitting, and spitting all on me. So let me tell you how it's gonna be. We pulled out that knife, I knew my life was over. Man, if they knew I was innocent and that judge rolled over. I can't do this no more. He pushing the knife deeper in my chest. I keep gasping and gasping, breathing my last breath. Now you see me on the news and they'll lie and say they was my friends. Well, you can't have no friends if you're dead. The death of a black man. Now they got me marching on. Now they got me on shirts, marching through the streets. This situation's so heated, you can see my face printed on a sheet. You got white propaganda spreading like a virus. It'll go through your bloodstream and bam! It'll hit you like a heart attack. Your heart ain't pumping a single blood. That's what it feels like to be me. Just because I'm black don't mean the apple's still close to the tree. Black man. Black lives matter, I'm getting madder, mom getting sadder. She gotta bury me, the old still burying their young. Can you hear me? Do you understand what I'm saying? You can't because I'm dead and no, I'm not playing. Out of all this, it falls under one stereotype, black. The color of my skin should have defined who I am, who I date, who I hang out with, what I do in my free time, how I speak, but it does. And our country has become ignorant of the fact that it does. I say let's break it. I say we grab this. I say we grab it by the horns and tame this animal to a future where our children don't have to live with the fear of being shot or beaten by the government that gives them their rights and protects them. Because I'm a young black man, I fall under a stereotype. The stereotype where I fail, I don't fail, I excel. I'm like a bumper sticker, don't tread on me, the death of a black man.
Jesus, you're the one we love.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that. But I thank God for this group, and I thank God for 41 years as a pastor, and it is good. I get a joy out of it. It is not always fun. Now, I want to make sure you understand. It is not always fun, but it is always good. Amen. It's always good. And when it's not fun, all I got to do is just wait. Because I'll look back on it and I'll laugh. Whatever's going on, much as I may not want it or like it at the time, all I have to do is just wait with my attitude. Because it won't be but a short while I'll be looking back at it and laughing. So just wait, the laugh will come, you know? But I thank God.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So throughout today, and it's been Martin Luther King Day, you're being reminded and it's been reiterated of the greatness of Martin Luther King Jr. Some of the common things you hear about throughout his speeches and throughout some of the poetries and poems today was he talked about accomplishing goals, becoming great, forgiving, and also talked about togetherness. So what I wanted to do for this program was actually talk about use some of MLK's quotes and just give some analogies, because what he talked about when he, before he passed in 1968 can still be relevant and still be used in today's society, in today's world, as long as you have the right perspective and you really kind of break down his words. So we'll start with some of the definitions, because I know that helps me for as far as definition and defining things. So analogies of MLK's quotes, what I mean by that is an alternate meaning or another example of what he meant when he said his quote. So the first quote was, he said, and these are all from Martin Luther King, "Every man must decide whether he will walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness." Another definition of altruism. Altruism is talking about togetherness. So I'll use an example of boxing. So I took boxing, I actually took some other different fighting styles, but the first thing they do outside of keep your elbows up and keep your hands in, keeping your arms in to protect yourself, is talking about how to make a fist. Okay? In this quote, and again I'll repeat it, every man must decide whether he will walk in the light of creative altruism or togetherness, or in the darkness of destructive selfishness. If you look at your fingers, your 5 fingers, and you're trying to box or fight, and if you go into a fight like this, when you throw a jab or a cross, that's a possibility for the destructive of these individuals, your fingers. You might break them, you might jam them against something, or you might fracture your fingers. But these individuals, if you bring them together and break a fist, now you throw that same cross. Now you're able to take down accomplishments, take down goals. Again, working collectively together to accomplish what you need to do. Again, Martin Luther King point over and over and over, exercise that. The next quote, he said, "We may all have come on different ships, but we're in the same boat now." Talking about togetherness. Myself, my wife, Jackson, we came in our vehicle. Mama Linda, Papa T came in her vehicle. Wanda came in her vehicle. But we're all here at Bethlehem. Bethlehem is our boat, our ship that we're all here together. So for us, for Bethlehem to survive and build, we must all work together. Now granted, we came through different paths and different avenues and different routes, but right now we are here in Bethlehem. So if Bethlehem burns or starts a fire, we must all work together to save each other and to ultimately save Bethlehem. Togetherness, working together, focus ultimately to accomplish a common goal, which is also surviving and becoming great. Third quote, "We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope." He has so many jewels in there. Definition, so finite is limited. So the example I have of this is my favorite basketball player is Michael Jordan. I believe he's still the greatest basketball player ever. Going into the playoffs, those that know about playoffs basketball series, it's best out of 7. So when he says he has finite disappointments, it's understood that you can't be perfect. There are not many teams that are perfect, and then I'm not sure how many years the NBA has been around, over 50 plus years. No one has ever went through all series in the playoffs and won every single game. So it's assumed now you will face some disappointment, and in the basketball analogy, you will face a loss. So Michael Jordan, even though he did have 6 championships, it was understood that, okay, I might face some losses. Tough competition versus the New York Knicks, tough competition versus any other team in the Eastern Conference, the Los Angeles Lakers, Larry Bird. He was going to accomplish those. He was going to face some disappointments and losses. However, he had a finite goal of his losses, so I would not, when he said to himself, I would not lose more than 3 games in any type of series. So ultimately, his infinite hope, his infinite goal in accomplishing the championship was that fourth win in accomplishing these, and he did it over and over and over. And again, he always faced some losses. He didn't do it perfectly, and that's just like our lifestyles, okay? We're going to face some losses when we're trying to accomplish our goals, but you must keep going on and on and on, and believe in yourself, believe in your team, believe in others around you, believe in the ultimate position. Ultimately, people don't want to say it, believe in Trump, that we will ultimately get to our common goal because we ultimately believe in God, and he will get us to where we need to get to. The fourth quote, excuse the sweat. Forgiveness is not an occasional act, it is a constant attitude. Again, forgiveness is not an occasional act, it is a constant attitude. So if we look at forgiveness, go a track. A track is 400 meters around, all right? From beginning to end, 400 meters around, it's one lap. So if you look at your life, you're trying to run your life right now. From beginning when you're born, Jackson's born, to when you get a little bit older, you also accomplish your goal. So every step on this track is forgiveness. People will disappoint you. People will get on your nerves. People will frustrate you. But the quicker you're able to overcome that and forgive, the faster you can pace yourself around the track, around that loop. Okay? So over time, teachers, other professors, other friends, family members, parents, there will be some times some people will disappoint you and they will hurt you. You have to understand the ability and the strength you have to forgive. Again, we're trying to run this lap, and forgiveness is not an occasional act. You have to continuously do it. Just not one time where I forgave him once. You have to do it over and over and over. And I've learned through my 36 years, the faster you can do it again, the faster you can set that 400 record, the faster you can recover in your life, and the faster and more better your overall life will be. And the last one I will use is, if I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way. If I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way. So analogy here is like building a building. My wife and I had the ability, and we're fortunate to actually travel to Dubai, and we were able to see one of the tallest buildings in the world. And if you look at the tallest building in the world, you're like, I can never build something like that. Me individually, Todd, and I got an engineering background, I could probably never build something by myself, or it would take too long because I don't have the equipment. But understand, all the cranes that brought all these tall pieces of buildings, it was done brick by brick. Individually, I can carry one brick and put it down. Individually, I can have my nephew go over here, bring me another brick. And now everybody brings a brick, we can start building this higher and higher and higher to achieve your common goal, to achieve your ultimate goal, and becoming great, and becoming whoever legacy and whoever you want to be or dream about. It takes one brick at a time, so keep on focusing and keep on going to the top. The 5 quotes again. Every man must decide whether he will walk in the light of creative altruism or the darkness of destructive selfishness. 5 fingers to a fist. We may have all come on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. Different vehicles. East, west, north, south. We are here together in Bethlehem, building this strong. Everybody in here is helping us build this establishment and be strong. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Michael Jordan, he will get those championships. Yes, I might get fouled many times against the New York Knicks. Yes, I might be bleeding through my nose. Yes, I might be down 3 games. But ultimately, I will never not lose that 4th game because I had my own goal. I got my accomplishment. I want this A in school. I want to graduate high school. I want to graduate college. Okay, I want to be successful. I want to have my job. I want to have my own business. You keep on having those dreams and don't let those dreams get crushed. Forgiveness is not an occasional act. It is a constant attitude. Forgive, 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 and keep running your lap. Keep running those 400 meters. All right, one leg, one distance, do 100 meters. And it won't take time, but the faster you are able to do that, you'll learn this over time. I could say when I was a little bit younger, it took me a little bit of time to forgive people. All right, I'm talking about, sometimes years, and you just hold that anger just builds up inside of you, and it's not good. You have to learn to release. And forgiveness is not for that other person, it's for you. So again, you must forgive, learn to forgive, so you can finish that whole track and become great. Then the last one, if I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way. You don't have to spend $1 million to get somebody a new vehicle. Just saying somebody, I love you. It's a small thing. Just giving somebody a warm hug. A lot of men need hugs. A lot of women need hugs. Say I love you. Say you're a nice person. Say a compliment. It's the little accomplishment that will help build everybody up to be great. And that's what I want to leave you with.
shopping at Woolworth store and I wanted a hot dog to eat. I saw some people sitting at the counter, so I decided to take a seat. I was only 4 years old and I couldn't quite understand. When I tried to sit at the counter, my mother would pull me by my hand. I saw some people sitting at the counter, so I decided to take a seat. Why can't I sit on a bar stool at the counter and eat with everyone else? I shouldn't have to go somewhere else and eat all by myself. Again and again, I snuggled on the bar stool to try to get to the top, but I only ended up in defeat because my mom kept telling me to stop. I watched the people passing by as we stood outside to eat our food. If I could have only climbed to the top, I could have been sitting on a bar stool. As we walked up Washington Avenue, my mom holding my hand, I saw a beautiful fur coat in Nathan's store window. I stopped walking and just decided to stand. I stood and watched that light brown coat that was filled with so many hairs. I'm going to get inside that store. I got to get in there. As we got closer to the store, I decided to lead the way. I'm going to touch and feel that coat that would truly make my day.
Now, Lord, hallelujah, may the grace of God and the sweet communion of His Holy Spirit rest, rule, and abide until we meet again. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Amen.